You've been cooking rice wrong, not slightly off. Wrong. And not just you. Almost everyone outside Japan cooks rice the same broken way. Too much water. No rinsing or the wrong kind of rinsing. A lid lifted at the wrong moment. Stirred when it shouldn't be. Never given the rest it actually needs. And yet in Japan, none of this happens. Home cooks turn out perfect rice every single day in a plain pot with no rice cooker and no equipment at all. Just a pot, a lid, and a method that predates the appliance most people now rely on instead of learning it. In Japan, rice isn't a side dish. It's the meal. Everything else on the plate exists to support it, not the other way around. And here's the part almost nobody realizes. The step that matters most in this entire method has nothing to do with cooking. It happens long before the pot ever touches heat, and it's almost always the one step skipped entirely. That reveal is coming. The method itself breaks into 6 stages: rinse, ratio, soak, cook, rest, fold. Followed in order, they turn out the same result, every time, regardless of stove, pot, or the particular bag of rice sitting in the cupboard. The failure point, in almost every case, comes down to starch and water far more often than timing. Raw rice arrives coated in surface starch and left alone. That starch gels the instant it meets hot water. That gel is what turns a pot of rice into a sticky, clumped mass instead of individual, separate grains. It also does something less obvious. It forms a barrier that keeps water from reaching the center of each grain evenly. The result is rice that's soft and soggy on the outside, chalky or half-cooked at the core. 2 opposite problems, in the same pot at the same time, which is part of why the failure feels so confusing when it happens. It doesn't look like one mistake. It looks like 2. Water measurement compounds the issue. Enough to cover the rice by an inch is a guess dressed up as a ratio, usually borrowed from long-grain rice instructions and applied to a completely different grain. That's why a pot of rice rarely turns out the same way twice, even when the process feels identical from the outside. It isn't identical. The guess just varies slightly each time, and rice, unlike a lot of cooking, has very little tolerance for that kind of variation. Solve the starch problem and the ratio problem, and most of the outcome is already decided before the stove is even turned on. Everything that follows exists mainly to protect a result that's already been set in motion. But before any of that, there's a decision made at the grocery store that determines whether the rest of the method works at all. This technique is built around short-grain Japanese rice, sold in most stores as sushi rice, koshi hikari, or akitakomachi, where available, though any short-grain Japanese rice from an Asian grocery store performs the same way. The reason for the specificity comes down to starch composition. Short-grain rice carries more of a starch called amylopectin than long-grain varieties like basmati or jasmine, and that's precisely what produces the texture associated with properly cooked Japanese rice: tender, faintly sticky, grains that hold together enough to lift with chopsticks but still separate cleanly once they reach the plate. Long-grain rice, run through this same process, won't fail outright. It simply won't arrive at this result. A few extra minutes spent finding the right bag changes everything that follows, and it's the one part of this whole method that can't really be corrected for later on. Then comes a step people assume they already know, and consistently get wrong anyway. The rice goes into a bowl, covered with cold water, swirled gently by hand. The water clouds almost immediately. That's surface starch releasing into it. That water gets drained quickly before the grains have a chance to reabsorb it. The process repeats 2 to 4 times. It works more like a gentle agitation than a scrub. The goal is to loosen starch and let it leave with the water, not to scrub the rice the way dirt gets scrubbed off a vegetable. Too much force, and the grains crack, particularly with short-grain rice, which is more delicate than it appears sitting in the bag. The signal to stop is simple: cloudy, milky water on the first pass. noticeably clearer by the third or fourth. Not perfectly clear, clearer. That's the entire threshold, and it's a lower bar than most people assume going in. What follows gets skipped constantly, even by cooks who rinse correctly. The rice rests in a fine mesh strainer for 15 to 30 minutes. Two things happen during that time. Excess surface water drips away, so the measurement made in the next step stays accurate, and the outer layer of each grain rehydrates slightly and evenly, setting up more consistent cooking later. Skip this stage, and every other step can be performed correctly while the result still comes out inconsistent, because water is about to be measured against grains that are still dripping, which arrives at the one number in this entire process worth remembering. Miscalculate it, even slightly, and everything done up to this point starts to unravel. The ratio for short-grain Japanese rice sits at roughly 1 part rice to 1.1 or 1.2 parts water by volume once the rice has been rinsed and drained. Not the 1 to 1.5 or 1 to 2 ratio printed on most long-grain rice packaging. A different grain built toward a different texture entirely. A measuring cup handles both rice and water consistently, every time. For more precision, weight works better than volume. 200 grams of rinsed, drained rice to roughly 220 to 240 grams of water lands in the right range, adjustable slightly from there, depending on whether a firmer or softer result is preferred. That's preference, not error, and it's one of the only places in this method where personal taste is actually allowed to enter the process. One detail causes confusion here. When the rice is soaked before cooking, which comes next, the water goes in beforehand, not afterward. It isn't a second measure added later. It does double duty. And that soaking step is the one promised at the start of this piece. It's the stage almost nobody outside Japan performs, and it's likely the single largest gap between ordinary rice and rice that actually tastes like something. Once rinsed and drained, the rice sits in the pot with its measured water, lid on, heat off entirely. 20 to 30 minutes in a warm kitchen, up to an hour in a cold one. Nothing happens on the surface that looks like progress, which is probably part of why the step gets skipped so often outside Japan. It does not look like it is doing anything. The reasoning comes down to a kind of race, running quietly inside the pot. One process is the outside of the grain absorbing water and softening. The other is heat working its way toward the center. Without a soak, the exterior finishes long before the heat reaches the middle, which is exactly where the soft outside, hard center problem originates. The real cause is hydration, not heat and not timing, solved before the stove is ever involved, and no amount of adjusting the burner afterward fixes a problem that started before the burner was even lit. Soaked first, the grain arrives at the stove already hydrated through and cooks evenly instead of racing against itself. That's the difference that actually shows up on the plate, even if it's invisible in the pot beforehand. Everything up to this point has been preparation. What happens over the next 90 seconds is where the process most often breaks down, even for those who've done everything correctly so far. The covered pot goes onto high heat, brought to a full boil as quickly as possible. This isn't a slow method from start to finish. Once it's audibly boiling, or steam is visibly pushing against the lid, the heat drops immediately to the lowest setting available. Covered, it simmers for 12 to 13 minutes. One rule outweighs every other instruction here. The lid stays on, not lifted to check, not lifted to stir, not lifted for a quick look. I've personally ruined rice this exact way more times than I'd like to admit. Steam and heat escaping at precisely the moment the grain needed both to hold steady. The temptation to check is strongest right around the point when checking does the most damage. After 12 to 13 minutes, the heat turns off completely, not down, off, and the pot sits covered and untouched for another 10 to 15 minutes. This resting phase continues the work quietly, Residual steam finishes the cooking, and moisture redistributes evenly through every grain instead of remaining concentrated wherever the heat was strongest. It's the least visually interesting part of the whole method, and also one of the parts most responsible for the final result. Only after that rest does the lid come off. One move remains, small but decisive: the difference between rice that's simply good and rice that resembles something served at a restaurant. Opening the lid usually reveals a slightly different looking layer at the very bottom and edges of the pot, a normal result of direct heat concentrated in that spot, not a sign that anything went wrong. A rice paddle, or a flat wooden spoon, folds the rice gently from the bottom upward, closer to folding batter than stirring in circles. A cutting motion through the rice, then a gentle turn, repeated a few times. This redistributes the last of the moisture and separates the grains without crushing them. That's the complete method. Rinse, ratio, soak, a hard boil, followed by low heat and total patience. A full rest, one gentle fold. No rice cooker, no gadget, no app signaling when it's finished. Just a pot, a lid, and a process repeated in Japanese households without much conscious thought, because it's simply how rice is made there, not a technique performed for an audience. Just an ordinary Tuesday night habit that happens to produce something better than what most kitchens elsewhere turn out on purpose. Repeated 2 or 3 times, something shifts. What started as a recipe, followed step by step, becomes something closer to instinct, performed without needing to think it through. I don't measure my own water anymore, most nights. I just know what it's supposed to look like against the rice. And if something this basic, cooked 1,000 times without a second thought, still had this much room for improvement, it raises a fair question about what else gets made on autopilot in an ordinary kitchen, yours included. That's the underlying idea running through this whole channel. The small, precise methods that quietly separate fine from genuinely well-made, one dish at a time. None of them requiring new equipment, most of them requiring only a different sequence of the same steps already being taken. The next piece in this series covers vegetables, using the same underlying principle: heat, timing, and a step almost everyone skips without realizing it, and the difference there turns out to be just as significant.